Hey guys, we're going to be doing some operations with complex numbers. So it really just comes down to adding, subtracting, and multiplying with complex numbers. So we are working on page M1-104, M1 104. All right, so a couple things to remember before we do this. I is a number, but what we're going to do when adding and subtracting is treating I as a variable. So for this first part, with adding and subtracting, we're really just going to be combining like terms. Combine like terms. That's really all it amounts to. Combine like terms. Okay, so that said, we've got this complex number, 3 plus 2i, and this complex number, 1 minus 6i. And be aware that we are subtracting these complex numbers. So we're doing 3 minus 1. Those are the like terms there, the real parts of this complex number. So 3 minus 1, that will give us 2. And then 2i minus negative 6i. Remember, if you're subtracting a negative, you're really just adding it. You're getting rid of the negative parts, right? So 2i minus 6i, you can say that as 2i plus 6i to give you 8i. And that would do it. If you would rather, you could also think of this as distributing the negative sign. So you could rewrite this if you want. If it makes it easier for you, you could go 3 plus 2i, and then distribute the negative sign to everything in here. So it would go plus negative 1 plus 6i. It's just a preference thing. So now you can read it as 2i plus 6i. Either way, just keep track of that negative sign and where it's at. All right, so on this, we've got 4i, positive I, that'll make 5i altogether. And hey, whenever you're writing these complex numbers, always have the imaginary part at the end. So complex numbers, the form there is a, which is the real number, plus b, the coefficient of your imaginary number. So it goes real part and then the imaginary part. That's what complex numbers look like. And then, hey, for the real part on this, we've got 3 minus 6 to give us negative 3, and then negative 3 minus 1 to give us negative 4. Then I'll go plus 5i. So again, I want the real part in front when I'm doing complex numbers. All right, so hey, moving on to C. We have got 5i times 3, which is 15i. So I'm just distributing this, by the way. And then 5i times negative 2i will give you negative 10i squared. And this is something that we covered in a previous video. I squared literally is equal to negative 1. So let's rewrite this. It's going to look like 15i minus 10 times negative 1. That's what this number is. I squared is negative 1. Okay, so then negative 10 times negative 1 is positive 10. And I'm just going to put that in front since that's the real part of my complex number. Okay, so part D here is going to require the most amount of work, it looks like. So if you remember double distribution or like FOILing from the first section that we covered this year, that's really what we're doing. So I'm going to distribute the 5 to the 2, and then I'll distribute the 5 to the negative 3i. So 5 times 2 for 10, 5 times negative 3 for negative 15i. Now I'll do positive 3i times 2 for 6i. 3i times negative 3i gives me negative 9i squared. Okay, so remember, we're combining like terms, so I can combine those. I can rewrite this as 10 minus 9i minus 9 times negative 1. Always replace I squared with negative 1. Okay, so now I've got 10 minus 9i plus 9. Negative 9 times negative 1 gave me positive 9. Hey, so now we can simplify this one more time. We can combine 9 and 10, those two real parts, for 19 minus 9i. Okay, for number 2, determine each product. So we're doing kind of the same thing, right? 2 plus I times 2 minus I. And then I times 2, I times negative I. So after multiplying, I should get this. I should get 4 minus 2i plus 2i minus I squared. Fantastic. All right, hey, so now it's going to be negative 2i plus 2i. Those will cancel each other out. I've got 4 minus. I squared gets simplified into negative 1, and this is going to leave me with just 5. That would be the product of those two things. All right, so then on this one, 1/2 times 1/2, 1/2 times negative I times 1/2, I times negative I. So hey, 1/2 times 1/2, or like thinking that as what's half of a half is a quarter. So I've got 1/4 plus 1/2 I. Actually, that's a minus. I should have done minus first, but that's okay. Minus 1/2 I. So I've got I times a half for positive 1/2 I, and then I did I times, 1/2 times negative I for negative 1/2 I. I got the order wrong, my bad. Hey, so minus I times I gives me negative I squared. Okay, so once again, 1/2 I minus 1/2 I, those cancel each other out. So that leaves me with 1/4 minus negative 1. I squared gets simplified to negative 1. So now I've got 1/4 plus 1, which is going to give me 1 and 1/4. Or you could rewrite that as 1.25 or 5/4, whatever kind of works for you guys. We can keep going. We'll do these last two. So for part C, 3 times 3 for 9. 3 times negative 2 for negative 6i. 2i times 3 for positive 6i. 2i times negative 2i for negative 4i squared. So to start simplifying, negative 6i plus 6i, hey, those cancel each other out. 9 minus 4 times negative 1. That's going to simplify to 9 plus 4, which is then going to simplify to just 13. Okay, so then, hey, part D, 1 times 1 for 1, 1 times 3i for 3i, negative 3i times 1 for negative 3i, and then negative 3i times 3i for negative 9i squared. So once again, you should notice something here when I've got this negative imaginary number times its positive counterpart. 3i times negative 3i, or 3i minus 3i is just going to cancel each other out. This becomes 1 minus 9 times negative 1, which then becomes 1 plus 9, which then becomes 10. Fantastic. So when we're doing the products, what did you notice about each product? We were left with only a real number, which is also complex. But so when you see that, when you see a positive imaginary number and a negative imaginary number with the same coefficient, they are going to cancel each other out when you're doing the multiplication like this. You're only going to be left with a real part of a complex number. Okay, so that's it for operations with complex numbers. Just remember that when you're subtracting, you got to keep track of that negative sign. You can either distribute it and then rewrite the expression, or just keep track in your head, like 2i minus negative 6i was positive 8i. Okay, combining like terms is really all it is though. Okay, so that's going to do it for this video. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye-bye.